What's going on, everybody? So today we're conducting a special experiment on the Lenovo Legion Go, Steam Deck, and ROG Ally. There's going to be 3 tests conducted. The first is going to be performance to see exactly how this game plays at 720p with uncapped FPS with all of these handhelds. The second is to see exactly how these handhelds resume Resident Evil 4 after being put into hibernation or sleep mode. Obviously, Steam Deck is most likely going to win this, but I just want to test it out at the end of this experiment. And the third test is going to be seeing how each handheld performs with their official chargers plugged in. So we're officially going to start the test with the Lenovo Legion Go, and I'm going to put the FPS at 144. And as you can see, the TDP is set to performance. So I believe that is 15 to 18 watts. And just for good measure, I'm going to show all of the metrics on the top left. Yeah, let's officially start this test. Right now in a cutscene, 80 to 100 FPS. All right, and this is at 720p. And the cutscenes aren't exactly pre-rendered. Well, some parts of the cutscenes are, so it'll most likely run at 144 FPS regardless. But going into the game, you see here at 720p, we have around 75 FPS. But what I wanted to see was exactly how much the game stutters on Windows versus Steam OS. Let's just check the graphics settings real quick. All right, 144 Hertz, variable frame rate, full screen, VSync turned off, FSR2 turned off, FSR1 turned off as well. Image quality 100%, rendering mode interlaced, and I'm just making sure all of the graphic settings for all of these handhelds that I'm testing is going to be exactly the same. Anti-alias FXAA plus TAA, very nice, and high texture 6 GB. I prefer the 6 GB over any of the other settings. It's going to stutter a little more, but that's what the test is all about. Texture filtering at high, ANISO times 8, mesh quality high, shadow quality mid, shadow cache on, context shadows on, ambient occlusion SSAO, volumetric lighting mid, particle lighting quality high, bloom on, screen space reflections on, subsurface scattering on, hair strands normal, graphic dismemberment on, of course, persistent corpses few, corpse physics high, I guess, diverse enemy animations on, I prefer my villagers hunched over, motion blur on, rain quality high, terrain on, destructible environments on, lens flare on, lens distortion on, plus chromatic aberration. And some people say they prefer the chromatic aberration off because it doesn't have that lens distortion effect, but I prefer it on because it's slightly more immersive to me. Depth of field on, resource intense quality high. Let's actually put these to low. But if we turn these on, those fog effects that you see in certain rooms will be on, but most likely we'll just run into those rooms at least once or twice. So I'm just going to turn these low just to increase the performance a little better. And that's it for the graphic settings. All right, so let's start this. All right, so right now it's running from 60 to 75 FPS, which is very good. And that's of course with the resolution at 720p. And I wanted to try this game in slightly quieter areas as well as the main mob location. All right, so we got 80 FPS right now. I got my sunglasses on. All right, this is an in-game cutscene, so it's running at 100 FPS. I keep forgetting that B doesn't turn your character around similar to Resident Evil 2 Remake. And the main thing that matters is the mob location, honestly. It's kind of difficult to get this first guy. But also, I am playing this on hardcore for all of the handhelds, because hardcore mode has the most enemies, and it's one of the most taxing difficulties graphically. Yeah, so as you saw, there were some stutters. And we got 67 to 73 FPS on average. Drops down sometimes. But so far, it's working pretty good at 720p. I'd expect the Legion Go to be able to handle this game, since it is using the Z1 Extreme chip. But who knows, maybe there'll be a little surprise with the Steam Deck. So there is a big stutter there. Got some stuttering here. And I think it's because the shader cache is loading in real time, and that really does hurt a lot of Windows 11 games performance, because loading something at the same time as playing something is never good, especially with these miniature SSDs and SD cards. And also the Legion Go's metrics aren't exactly the most accurate at the moment, and as you can see, there is a lot of stuttering going on. I didn't experience that on the Steam Deck. I wonder if they follow you. Nope, close the door right behind you. All right, here we are at the main first mob location, and ironically enough, one of the most taxing locations in this game. All right, Let's check out that guy burning real quick. If I intend on beating hardcore mode, I usually like to stealth kill this first enemy here. See, and there's a ton of stuttering, as I expected with the Legion Go. Legion Go, even though it has faster RAM, for some reason, there are more frequent stutters with the Legion Go than there are with the ROG Ally, and that's saying a lot. All right, so we're at 77 FPS, but there are a lot of stuttering, so that kind of takes away from the whole thing. This guy's just praising the dead body. Crazy. I'll run in here because I'm a wuss. Yeah, we're going to skip these cutscenes because they're not exactly accurate when it comes to the FPS. All right, nice. So we have around 80 FPS on average. Very good, but the stuttering still takes away from the experience, in my opinion. I'm going to try to survive this real quick. Just took that headshot. Yeah, that's the thing about hardcore mode. The Ganados in this one just take headshots like nothing. And also, they're very unpredictable. I'm probably going to get hit right here. Oh, all right. Even if I don't live past this location, this is still a good performance reference for the Legion Go. Oh, gosh. He just gave me a freaking Rocky hook. Oh, God. Kind of difficult to play this game with all this stuttering going on. But you're going to run into a lot of performance similar to this on the Legion Go. And this is the main reason why I put this game in the main SSD on the Legion Go, because on an SD card, it's even worse. I don't think the Legion Go is using the same SD card slot as the ROG Ally. 70 FPS on average is very impressive. I love that, because that was supposed to be in the original Resident Evil 5 and they never put it in that game, so I'm really hyped that they actually have that segment in Resident Evil 4 Remake. That means we're going to get a lot of features in Resident Evil 5 Remake that a lot of people are going to want, including the darkness and light contrast features. Wow, that was close. All right, so we definitely might not live past this point. And honestly, I just wanted to showcase how the Legion Go and the ROG Ally play games at 720p, because a lot of people just prefer to play them at 1080p. But I think that it's not a good reference. They're going to work almost exactly the same as the Steam Deck because you require double the amount of power for those resolutions. Hardcore mode is extremely difficult. I may as well just... Oh, God. All right, well, I'm going to get executed. Not good. I'm waiting for the stuttering to stop. Just let the stuttering stop, guys. Oh, God. I can't get a headshot to save my life. Just a cheek shot. Gosh. All right, well, that's the end of the test for the Legion Go. It ended exactly how I wanted it to end, with the chainsaw guy killing me. But let's continue this with the official Legion Go block plugged in to the system. All right, let's see if it stutters as much plugged in. All right, we're getting even lower FPS than before. We're at 59. And I'm just going to start fighting them. I'm not going to go in. All right, I got the same sort of thing. You have some stutters here and there. All right, you got more stutters. All right, it's kind of a solid 70 FPS for now. I guess there's slightly less stuttering. I could actually view my surroundings and gain some sort of strategy. But yeah, I am not good at a hardcore mode in this game. All right, let's just catch on fire real quick. Oh, it's crazy. Wow, I can't believe they did that to the cow. Yeah, I mean, on average, it seems to be running at an even lower FPS plugged in. All right, so let's conduct the last test, which is the hibernation. And this is mid-combat. And I'm just going to check if anything was changed similar to the ROG Ally when you plug it in. Doesn't seem like it. Also, just to make sure it wasn't the thermals, I'm going to put the fan in full speed. It's kind of hard to hear myself talk now, but let's try it. Oh, if I can live. Goodness gracious, man, these guys are so fast. All right, so it's running at 62 FPS. Okay. Oh, but it's so loud, man. Goodness. Yeah, Resident Evil 4 hardcore mode is no joke. Anyway. All right, so real quick, let me just put this thing into hibernation mode mid-gameplay. All right, let's wait for that fan to shut up. Still waiting. And the cool thing about the Legion Go, the LED light on the top lights up right before it officially falls asleep. So at least with this Windows handheld, there's some kind of indicator that lets you know when it's finally going to stop, as you can see. There goes the LED. And there you go. The fan finally shut up, so now we're going to turn this back on. Let's see if we can resume it or if it crashes the game, as expected. Oh, hey, I'm in something. Okay. All right, are we able to jump back into the game? It seems like it. The Legion Go has officially resumed from hibernation mode mid-death. That's pretty impressive. All right, nice. All right, we're right back into the game after hibernation mode was activated. Sweet. And like I said, hibernation mode actually saves a lot more battery than something like the Steam Deck does in sleep mode, but it is more difficult to get every game to work with hibernation mode, or even sleep mode for that matter. Sometimes the game just keeps the system awake after putting it into sleep mode, so that's why I put all of my Windows handhelds in hibernation mode, similar to the Legion Go. Let's unplug this. And yeah, for some reason, the system has a lot better FPS unplugged. And this has been the issue with the Legion Go from the start. For some reason, its official brick just isn't enough to supply enough power for performance and battery life. Saw that little graphical glitch there? But yeah, now it's at 80 FPS and that's unplugged. So the Legion Go actually works better unplugged. It's like the complete opposite from the ROG Ally. And speaking of which, let's move over to the ROG Ally. Whew, this thing is so much lighter than the Legion Go. It's amazing. And I have my official charger ready for the ROG Ally because we know this is going to get real good after I plug it in. And right now I'm at turbo mode, so we don't have much time until the battery runs out. Let's start a new game in hardcore. So right now we have around 60 FPS with cutscenes. Of course, we have a lot better audio on this thing. And yes, this is at 720p. And now we're going to set the FPS limiter to max. It's still running about 70 FPS, which is a little strange. All right, stutter right from the get-go. All right, we're at 50 FPS. So the Legion Go actually seemed to play this game a little better. All right, and the first thing I'm gonna do is check the graphic settings. Okay. And I'm just going to make sure all of the graphic settings are exactly the same. And it should be because I'm using the same exact cloud save. All right, let's put this to low. This should increase performance. All right, froze up a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right, now we are at, it's getting there. It's getting there. 45 FPS? Only 45? Yeah, it is very smooth though. And that's all thanks to VRR. I gotta tell you, VRR on the ROG Ally is a godsend. It seems like they save a lot of battery by decreasing the FPS, but it's who smoothed it out with VRR on this handheld. It is so amazing. It feels so smooth on the ROG Ally. Man, oh man. So smooth. I can't even... It might be better than the Steam Deck. Let's try not to get grabbed this time. Although I want to see how the FPS differs when they zoom into the characters. That's my first instinct. 66 FPS, and the VRR is going strong. There we go. Smooth. Headshots are actually a lot easier to make on this handheld, mainly because everything is so much more smoothed out. And also, I think the ROG Ally has the best latency out of any of the handhelds. But yeah, VRR is wonderful on this handheld. That's why this is my main handheld, even after getting the Steam Deck. You just can't deny how well it plays all of these games. Even after releasing more than a year ago, this is still the most smooth experience I have with any handheld, honestly. But we're gonna try to hurry into that first mob location before the battery dies. But we all know that the ROG Ally not only has the best performance when plugged in to its official charger, of course. And we got caught by that, great. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I'm starting to see some stutters here and there. And very few stutters in comparison to the Legion Go for sure, so far. But it's only the opening area. All right, the FPS dropped down to 40. All right, let's go in. Let's see how well I do. All right, I think I could actually pass this level on the ROG Ally. I mean, this is the only system I play Resident Evil 4 Remake on, for very good reasons. Like, this is the only handheld I played separate ways on. And you saw that I just pushed that guy. That was so rude. My reaction time is so bad. Not because of the system or anything, it's just me. Wow, so far this is like a 100 times better experience than the Legion Go. My God. You guys like my mask? 56 FPS, 60. Every single handheld system needs a VRR display, in my opinion. A lot of people say that it doesn't make a difference, but as you can see here, it makes a huge difference. I feel like it kind of gets rid of lagging altogether. All right, we're gonna get the shotgun this time, and the hand grenade. But you can tell that there is still some stuttering here and there, but the VRR smooths it out so much, I just can't shut up about it. Let's get the hell out of here. That's what you're supposed to do, Leon. From the window to the walls. Oh, threw it right in his face. No, no. I'm having a good time with this. Hey, this is just coming from perspective of a person that's wondering if they should get either the Legion Go Steam Deck or ROG Ally specifically for Resident Evil 4 Remake. No, not today. Whew. I like the buttons too. They're a lot easier to reach. I could just spam them whenever I want. Oh, battery's about to die. Go, there we go. Perfect. All right, and the cool thing about the ROG Ally is when it's at low battery, it doesn't actually affect the performance at all. All right, so the second test is, of course, testing to see exactly how the ROG Ally performs with its official charger plugged in. Whew, this charger is thick for good reason. All right, so now we're gonna go at turbo 30 watts. So it's basically the ROG Ally at its highest possible power capacity. All right. So the VRR kicked in right away. It's very smooth. I can't even tell that it's under 60 FPS. It feels like 60. Yeah, definitely lower latency, but there are still some stutters here and there. Oh my gosh, these guys are so fast. All right, we got 65, 67 FPS. Okay. Of course, that's thanks to the cutscene. Now we're at 50. Okay, so overall, the ROG Ally does have less FPS than the Legion Go does, but the VRR display makes for a smoother experience, clearly. Get the hell out of here. So it pretty much works the same even after enabling 30 watt mode. Man, these people are so annoying. Dude, you went for a second hit? What are you, a boss? Well, that's that. All right, so while I'm dying, okay, it finally fell asleep. Awesome. All right, let's turn this thing back on. Okay, and there you have it. It completely closed Resident Evil 4 Remake after falling asleep, which is kind of a common thing to happen with ROG Ally. So ROG Ally failed the sleep test, while the Legion Go actually passed the sleep test, but failed the performance test. And now for the main event, the Steam Deck OLED. This is such a beautiful display. With HDR enabled, it looks absolutely fascinating. See, if this were the ROG Ally and now we're at 47%, I would be freaking out by now, but it's not. In fact, not only is it not the ROG Ally, but I have metrics up the wazoo with this thing. But I'm just going to put the simple metrics on the top and start a new game, hardcore. And of course, the loading times are going to be faster on the Steam Deck OLED because of the shader cache download. Let's set the FPS to 90 with no TDP limit. Oh, damn it. Sorry, I put the system to sleep by mistake. Let me just turn it back on. I'm not trying to flex. I actually did that by mistake. Beautiful. All right, so we got 70 FPS in cutscenes, but that's a cutscene. It's not special. All right, so in the opening location, I don't see any stuttering. I just see lower FPS. So we got 35 FPS, which is the lowest FPS we've gotten with these three handhelds. Around 40 FPS, which is the FPS I prefer, honestly. Resident Evil 4 Remake plays at an optimal 40 FPS on the Steam Deck. When you're in the castle location, this game actually goes up to 60 to 70 FPS at 720p. Oh, and of course, let's check the graphic settings to make sure everything is up to par. Okay. Gotta put that to 8 gigabytes, unfortunately. Oh, this has to be times 8, right? All right, mesh high. Okay. All right, so that FPS was without all of these graphical settings turned up like they were similar to the ROG Ally and Legion Go settings. All right, for some reason we have higher FPS while putting up the graphic settings. All right, so we're at 49 to 50 FPS, not bad. And I know that's all due to the shader cache download that's already installed into the Steam Deck. So there are barely any stutters, around 70 FPS. For a second there, we hit 90. This is a very closed off location, so makes sense why it's running at around 50 FPS. Let's see if we get a headshot on this guy. Of course, the latency on the Steam Deck is probably the worst out of all three. And it's mainly because of the Proton layer, I guess. That's what a lot of people are saying. It's just gaming mode in general. So the latency on this is not really that noticeable, but it is noticeable if you're comparing it to something like the ROG Ally's input latency. That thing has beautiful input latency. And I love the fact that the start button is on the top right and not down here like that weird Legion Go has. Of course, we just did the sleep test by mistake. So the Steam Deck OLED already passed the sleep test, but who wasn't expecting that, right? Just run past all this and get to that mob location. And usually games don't start off the game with the most taxing area being the first, but Resident Evil 4 Remake starts this game off with an explosion. just absolutely as many enemies as they can possibly get on the screen at one time. All right, so we're at 35 FPS and no lag whatsoever. All right, praise this. All right, around 55 FPS, not bad. Skip. And I can't wait to see the plug-in test, because I've been wondering about Steam Deck and if it actually plays games better plugged in, like a lot of people claim it doesn't. And even Valve claims that there's no difference between Steam Deck plugged and unplugged performance. Oh, great. How did he climb that fast? That's kind of bullshit. Yeah, so it's playing really well. Not as good as the ROG Ally, because the FPS isn't as high as the ROG Ally was, but there's almost zero stuttering. I haven't even noticed one stutter, honestly. There probably was one here and there. Oh, all right, that was a mistake. All right, so while we're dead, I may as well just try that official plug. All right, so it's plugged in. Let's see how it runs. All right, so around the same thing, 35 to 40 FPS. If anything, the plug might add some heat to the Steam Deck. Not exactly certain about that, but okay, so 33 FPS. Just unplug this real quick. Let's just look at them for a sec. Okay, 34 FPS. Can't really tell, there's a very small difference. All right, it jumped up to 40 after being plugged in. All right, so I think there is actually a performance boost when the Steam Deck is plugged in, but just around 3 FPS, nothing too major. All right, we got around 40 FPS on the mark. All right, so there is slightly better performance. This is good because I have so many power banks that I'm willing to use with the Steam Deck OLED. And I know this thing's going to give me that much needed battery life boost with any of my power banks. Ooh. All right, so I think the Steam Deck wins in terms of performance because of the lack of stuttering, but it's sort of tied with the ROG Ally because of the ROG Ally's VRR display. And it does seem like Resident Evil 4 Remake and the Steam Deck OLED in general plays better plugged in. Let's just unplug it again just to make sure. There you go. See, it dropped down to 37 FPS, and it's still a decent FPS, especially in a scene this taxing. But I think the ROG Ally wins in terms of performance, as a lot of people expected. But the Steam Deck wins with its sleep mode, optimization, and it's sort of honestly tied with the ROG Ally in terms of performance because of the lack of lag. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Steam Deck OLED versus the Legion Go and the ROG Ally. I'm dead again, great. Which do you prefer to play Resident Evil 4 on? I personally prefer the Steam Deck and my ROG Ally. The Legion Go still has a lot of work and optimization ahead of it in terms of playing Resident Evil 4 Remake in any sort of feasible way. But for now, I think the definitive way to play this game is on the Steam Deck if you want a console-like experience and something that doesn't eat up too much battery. Hey look, when I'm dead, it's at 60 FPS. Yeah guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Later.